Welcome, everyone, and thanks for joining us today. You're listening to the Women's Broadcast Television Network here on Women on TV. And you're listening to the Shea Vaughn Show, and I'm your host, Shea Vaughn. We're so excited about our guest today. I just can't wait for you to hear the wisdom that she's going to, bring to you. So let me tell you just a little bit about her. Nancy Gordon knows firsthand what it's like to descend into the depth of disability. By combining her personal experiences of the chronic pain condition known as fibromyalgia and a traumatic brain injury with her professional skills and expertise as a licensed psychotherapist, Nancy offers a very unique clinical and personal perspective in her transformational book series, and I love this, 7 Steps of Hope and Healing. Nancy, thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you for having me. I'm excited about sharing myself and what I do with the world.
Oh, and we're excited about hearing about it. So first and foremost, let's talk about, the trauma that you've gone through.
Okay. It was a life-defining moment and has had many other life-defining moments following it. And I'm happy to say that I've come through it on the other side and have made just amazing, I've just had amazing experiences and growth through it, which is a big part of what I teach. So I was a licensed clinical social worker in Oregon. I had a private practice for 16 years. The last 6 of those were after a car accident I had. And the minute that I had the metal of the 2 cars collide, my life changed forever. I can say now it changed in a really amazing, powerful way. But I went through a long journey to get here. And what I experienced in that journey is at the time of my car accident, fibromyalgia wasn't even considered a real diagnosis. I didn't get diagnosed for 3 years after my car accident. I didn't know what had happened to me. Right. I was and still am a very goal-oriented, high achiever kind of person. I had my own business. I loved, being self-employed and doing what I did, and had a very full practice that I loved. And when this car accident happened, everything changed. My body changed. My sleep patterns changed. And what was most disturbing to me was that I had been accustomed to setting my goals and meeting them. I was really someone who was very fortunate in being able to accomplish what I set out to do. So I had this car accident, which rendered me in a physical condition I'd never experienced before. Pain, sleep problems, headaches, et cetera, and depression, anxiety, and I was self-employed, so I'm keeping my business together while all these things are happening to me. And I was really upset for a long time. It took me a long time. This is turns out to be one of my steps in my book, of not surrendering, not accepting what was happening to me and figure out another way to deal with it. Right. I kept trying to deal with what happened to me physically in the same manner that I had been, but I wasn't successful. I couldn't get my sleep regimented. I couldn't, I had very non-restorative sleep. And little bit by little, I got continually worse and more disabled. And I got to a point where I realized I didn't want to live like this anymore. Yeah. And I couldn't see how I could fix it. I'd tried everything from A to Z, allopathic medicine, to holistic medicine. I was, very much holistically minded anyway, but none of it really made a difference in helping me recover and, keep my business going in a way that I felt good about.
Mm-hmm.
So I ultimately ended up getting to the point where I was so debilitated, I really didn't have any choice.
Right.
And that was one of my lessons. It's like, looking back, if I had done things differently, I might not have ended up in the position I was in terms of having to close my business. We never know that, and I also believe things happen the way they're supposed to happen.
For a reason, there's a purpose and a lesson.
Right. But at that time, I didn't know what that purpose was. I know what it is now. It's what I'm doing with what my experience was. But I didn't know then. So it took me a while to really get to the point of surrendering and accepting what was, and realizing that I'm going to have to make a major change. And so I closed my business of 16 years and rented my house out that I had built in Oregon on a lake. I mean, I had a lot of losses.
Yeah, I can see.
I moved to California where my parents were, and so at that age, I was depressed at the time. I had to give up my practice because I was giving up my whole life.
Okay.
But I thought I was depressed then. When I moved, I closed my business and everything and moved in with my parents, I think that was about 44, I was really depressed.
I can imagine. I can only just imagine that. Well, I mean, that is a lot of suffering that you go through. And it's so hard at that time to try to look at the benefits that are going to come out of it, because you're in misery, depression, and, what do I do next? And all of these, decisions and everything that has to be made. But you did that. And so your first book is a series, is 7 Steps of Hope and Healing. And you talk about the mental and the spiritual impact of the chronic illness of disability. And I can only imagine what that is, because it is, spiritual. It is definitely mental. And so how do we help ourselves to get out? What helped you to finally, turn that corner and realize that there's benefits here and things that you can do, and that life is going to be okay for you, and that you can help others with it, with your story and what you've been through?
Mm-hmm. Well, my first step of the 7 steps is surrender without giving up.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what I was just referring to about what happened for me when I finally decided to close my practice. That's when I really learned about the importance of that step. And I had to, because I was such a high achiever, I had to really reframe what surrendering meant. And that's why I talk about it in terms of without giving up, because a lot of people confuse giving up with surrender. I did at that time. And I discovered that they're really very 2 different experiences and responses.
And I think that is so important to point out, because surrender doesn't mean that you're happy about it, or that, life is over. Those are the kinds of things that people think about. Oh, you're surrendering, you're giving into all of it. No, you want to move forward, and you need to surrender that this happened to you, that these are what the, facts are currently right now. And how can I, how do I build a business, and how do I get back to whatever it is that I'm meant to do on this great earth?
Right.
And find that and turn it all around.
Right. And one of the reasons that I look back now, and I feel honored in a way that I get to do this. But at the time that I was going through all this, those last 6 years, there was no roadmap on dealing with the emotional, mental, and spiritual impacts of an onset of a sudden disability.
Absolutely.
And there wasn't even that much on physical treatment, but certainly there wasn't really anything.
Right.
And
the
so,
reason Yes, I often talk about, wouldn't it be nice if we had, training wheels for life?
Yeah.
Then we feel safe and balanced, and we know that we're not going to fall off.
Right.
But that doesn't come, and especially after a certain age in life, training wheels aren't even on bicycles for children that are a certain age and a certain height. So I want to ask you about your second book. Tell me a little bit about that. And because I know that had to do with loss and the grief that, that follows, which is what you've been talking about.
Mm-hmm. Well, one of the blessings that came out of my experience was less than a year after I closed my business and went on disability, I learned about this rare breed dog called the Mexican Hairless. Their breed name is actually Xolotl Squintley, but it's hard to pronounce, so everybody says the Mexican Hairless. So I had experienced one of the benefits that they're known for in their history. They go back 3,500 years to the ancient Aztecs, where they were used as, quote, bed warmers for arthritis-like symptoms. So because they're hairless, or some are also, very short-haired or hairless belly.
Yeah, I know the dog, yeah.
Yeah, so they generate heat when they're skin to skin. So at that time, I was still using a 24/7 microwave neck wrap where I had most of my pain from the car accident, the whiplash. And I put my hand under this dog's belly that was hairless for about 15 minutes where I had some pain, wrist pain at that time. And 15 minutes later, my pain was relieved. And I thought, I'm going to get one of these small size Xolos, put her around my neck, and call her Toaster. And that's what I did.
I love it. I love it.
Toaster was an amazing dog. And she really, as I say, took me by the leash down a total path of transformation. And she is definitely part of why I am where I am today and with the 7 steps. So she helped me a lot. And Animal Planet found out about her pregnancy at the time. She was 3 years old. And they were looking for a dog that was pregnant, but when they found my story, they found so much more. They were doing somersaults.
Sure, yeah.
Because they found the first identified service dog for chronic muscle pain. They found an ancient dog, a rare breed dog, who were used in those times for the healing that they provide. And they did a piece about the fibromyalgia itself, which was at that time sort of really coming more into people's awareness, more diagnoses. And then of course they had the whelping, the pregnant dog. And so they filmed Toaster from the beginning with her pregnancy and then her whelping. And then they connected me with the National Fibromyalgia Association at that time, who was just starting their first magazines. And so they did an article about me and Toaster and Animal Planet, pictures were in it. And so I ended up placing, with the intention of placing Toaster's puppies with people around the country who could use them as service dogs, as I was.
Yeah.
So Animal Planet filmed the whole thing, including the placement party of one of the dogs, the hairless dogs, with a woman who suffered from migraines and fibromyalgia. And it's just precious. It's really an amazing video.
That's amazing. I want to kind of move on a little bit because I don't want to run out of time, and you've got so much to talk about. So I want to talk about the third was a dog that only had 3 legs. And I love what you have to say, who lost her leg and found her courage.
Yeah.
That there's so much truth in that in life.
Yeah.
It happens to us and everything is, life is over. No,
right.
It's not.
Yeah. So this was Toaster's daughters.
Okay.
This is her hairless female. I have her book, you can see.
Okay. Oh, yeah. Oh, how cute is that? I love the colors and everything in that. It's beautiful.
Yes. And so Toaster had this litter, and Pink, who's this hairless dog, came back to me because she had a bad kneecap and needed some surgery. And long story short, I had to make the decision by the time she was 1 to amputate her leg because she had fractured the femur above this bad knee. And so she became a 3-legged dog. And she was an incredible mentor for me, because here she was with her own disability, but I watched how she dealt with that so differently than I had been dealing with mine, with a lot of angst, with depression, with, frustration. She it was her back leg that was amputated. She didn't know how to balance or leverage her body so that she could get onto the couch, for example. And I saw her try a few times and fail. And then I watched her go far back in the living room and make a runway. And she ran on her 3 legs and flew onto the couch.
Love it.
Sat down.
Where there's a will, there's a way, is what
Yeah.
you're really saying. And
Yeah.
A question that I have is that, with your clients and whatever, what can they expect to learn from you?
Well, the 7 steps are really solid principles that have actions and behaviors that really help you transform whatever challenge you're dealing with.
Right. And so what services do you actually provide then?
So I have an online program based on both of these books.
Right.
The chronic illness, and this is the grief book, which we were just starting about Pink. I had to make the decision to let Pink and Toaster go 9 months apart. And I went through that experience, finding that there was not a lot of help for that in making the decision and how to go through the grief. And so that's why I wrote that book too. So, so my program's about using these 7 steps in ways that really help you make a true transformation. And I work with people, particularly love to do transformational retreats, especially on cruise lines. So I make transformation fun. That's actually one of my last steps, is play in the balance and balance in the play.
Yeah. And anything that you do that is fun, that, we all need to just laugh, so much more every single day, and find a reason to do that. And they're there.
Yes.
We're just, sometimes, too embedded into the negative side of things rather than flying that away.
Right.
And really, trying to embrace the positive. So I know that you have a special offering, a gift to the viewers, and they can find it on your website.
Yes.
And if you would give that information to them, I know that they would be thankful for that.
Sure. So I'd like to offer a taste of the Hope and Healing program. And so I invite people to have a complimentary Hope and Healing session with me.
Okay.
They can access that through the website link. My website is www.nancygordonglobal.com.
Okay. So they can go there and they can find out how to get in contact with you,
Right.
Even read about all the things that we've talked about today, which was amazing. I always love stories. And people they have the story because they come out of it. But you really had a lot to go through. I mean, you really had to walk away from everything and have to go back to live with Mom and figure it all out. And it's, and not feeling well and being sick. It's hard enough when those things happen and you don't have a major, car accident or something that's, compromised, everything. But you seem to have done it and came out with a smile on your face and have found the blessing that actually came out of all the things that you have had to do. I just, want to thank you so much for being on the show with us today. And so Nancy Gordon Global.com, and then you can do /hope, and you can find her. So look her up. She's great. She's amazing. So I do want to thank our audience today for tuning in, and, live a healthy life. Think about the choices that you're making, because they make a difference, not just so much in your life, but in all the people's life that are around you, your kids, your loved ones, and whatever, because they notice more than they are, than they hear. And when they can see you being the leader and making better choices, it helps them to do the same thing. So until next week, everyone, thank you so much for joining us.